No, my head's not cut off.
Well, I'm glad your head's not cut off, Mr. Green Knight.
Green Knight?
You remember that story? The Sir Gawain or whatever and the Green Knight?
No. Should I?
Guess I'm going to be adding that one to our TBR. Welcome to the CodeX Cantina. I am Una.
And I am the Green Knight.
All right, welcome back to our grand finale of The Wastelands by Stephen King.
Yeah. Which is really like Kill Bill Part 1.
Oh, yeah. Which we knew. We've read this before. We knew going into it, and I feel bad. But, you know, at this point, pretty much anyone can just start the next book. But, man, if you were hoping to quit after this one, sorry.
Imagine being the reader back then. What was it, like 6 years before
Yeah.
Wizard and Glass came out or something?
So, first of all, how are you feeling this round of reading it for a second time from a more critical angle?
I think I've enjoyed it more because of the journey with you and the book chat and everything. But critically, you can see the parallels like we've discussed so many times with Lord of the Rings that obviously he's not ripping anything off, but it's like, okay, Lord of the Rings, the Wasteland, the poem, the Child Roland or whatever, like he made a lot of this up himself, obviously. You know, I'm not taking any away. I love Stephen King. He's one of my favorite authors. But I feel like this is his magnum opus, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Just from a critical standpoint, I feel like it's not ripped off because that's not the right terminology, but it's not as impressive, I feel like, when I read this as, I don't know, I was 18, 19.
Well, you read it with the blockbuster eyes, right? There's
Yes.
there's a ton of action in it, and it's a very exciting book. All right,
Yes.
Let's jump into the plot summary, and then we'll jump into our analysis. So we have Eddie and Susanna stumble upon the path of the beam. They come upon turtle symbols, they find their way through some tunnels, hold the pubes people up, and demand to be taken to Blaine. It's hard for me to say pubes and not giggle. All right, so Gasher at the same time physically kind of abuses, pushes Jake around as they head to the TikTok man. They hear Roland trigger traps as he's following them. They arrive at the TikTok man and talk about Nazis and David Quick. Now, at the same time, Eddie and Susanna arrive at Blaine, and Blaine warns them that he's going to require that they pass a riddle contest. TikTok man becomes angry with Gasher, who wrote down the password, and in some of the commotion, Roland and Oi break in and save Jake, and then start heading towards Eddie and Susanna for the Grand Union, where they get on the train, and Blaine basically says, hey, I'm going to gas this whole city. Woo! Now you got to solve my riddles, and they take off. And that's kind of the pseudo, I think most people call that a cliffhanger at this point in time, to be fair.
And they figure out that he's going to kill them and commit suicide because Patricia committed suicide, the other train, if they can't out-riddle him, because Roland makes kind of a deal. And then, boom, cliffhanger. And I imagine, I like, if this was the series, and this was, you know, the end of a season, it would have been so cool to have, you know, the train go away and the camera, like, pull back and see the train racing along the wastelands, and the you know, and you hear the maniacal laugh of Blaine as the camera pulls away, and you see it go off into the wastelands. It would have been really cool.
I know what you want. You want that jib shot where it like starts low and then kind of starts to pull up and back as the train races away from the camera. I think I know I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
And you would have seen, you know, and you could have seen Eddie and Roland and Susanna and Jake and Oi, you know, because the train would have been invisible, and you would have seen the gunslinger standing there. And I don't know, it would have been a cool shot to end, you know, like season 2 or season 3 or something. So this book has a lot of action. It's a really good book overall.
Right.
But reading it with critical eyes, I take some qualms with it.
Yeah, it's not as strong from a literary perspective as the other two.
Yes.
Now, let's wrap up this chat. So we have to wrap up our comparison to Lord of the Rings, right? So we went through Rivendell, where they formed their fellowship, aka the Quartet. We established the goal, you know, bringing the ring to Mordor, getting to the tower to save the universe. We have them arguing over which direction to go, whether it be the mountain in Lord of the Ring, you know, or we have going around or through Lud in this one. Now, in this section, We have, I wrote down that the ring was frequently compared to nuclear weapons and a World War II allegory, even though Tolkien's like, I hate allegories. It's like, well, then why do you write them? Like, now here we literally have the Lud bomb going off, which is literally the nuclear weapon to destroy the city, completing kind of like that picture of the nuclear disaster from our last section where there's just a ton of allusions to it, right?
Yeah, but then he does make reference that it wasn't that destroyed Roland's world. I thought that was interesting.
We'll get more into that with the next one.
Yeah, but Eddie does make a comment that this was worse than that, and Blaine confirms. He's like, oh yeah, much worse than that.
All right, now, we haven't talked about this yet, but near the end of the Fellowship, what is the big gatekeeper that's been around for hundreds of years that they have to fight to get past?
Yeah, the Balrog. So
if that's the Balrog, here Blaine is clearly the hundreds of years old gatekeeper when they go through Lud, through the mountains. This is the Balrog of this story, right? And I feel like at the end of the Fellowship, it kind of ended on a little bit of a cliffhanger in the Gandalf story, at least, and the Fellowship kind of breaks apart. I'm not sure he's meaning to mirror it exactly, but he's mirroring it exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I think from a literary standpoint, we're being, a little hypercritical, because that's what we do here, and you can nitpick this a little bit more, that if it's not a blockbuster book, it is a very similar representation of another series, which is not a bad thing, because I don't
think this is negative at all. Fellowship of the Ring is one of the greatest book to movie adaptations ever. Like, this is a compliment, right?
Yeah, and this, anytime you're trying to imitate one of the greats, as long as you are doing it with your own unique flair, which I think Stephen King has done, it's good. It's just from a literary standpoint, you can see, and we've given you example after example on the channel here, how this is so similar. And then even in this section, King talks about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, right? He does. That's right. He directly calls it out.
Now, the other thing that you pointed out that I liked that he called out was the Shirley Jackson story, The Lottery, which we covered on the channel. And Susanna talks about how, in college, she read that story and that this is exactly playing out Shirley Jackson's worst fear of what would happen to society if it broke down.
Well, that leads to a larger talking point, right? Because these were, you could kind of say these were cults. And they're sides of an army. You can kind of say they're cults, right? Did you pick up on any other cult references in this section?
Yeah, so the Jim Jones reference.
So Jim Jones was the leader of, basically, you can say it's a cult, but he took his people to a commune in Guyana. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not, but Jake directly calls that out in one section about the Guyana reference, but it's the idea where when he was leading his people to this in Guyana into Africa, I think it was, some of them tried to escape or there was something like that, and they ended up killing them. And then he led his followers to a ritualistic kind of self-sacrifice, a mass suicide, basically, right?
Yeah, like 900 people died. He killed himself. It was pretty horrific. And I'm guessing that this was huge in the news, and Stephen King must have seen that newspaper laying next to his typewriter or something. I'm not sure why that particular reference to a cult and suicide he uses in the book, but he uses that one. I mean, there's plenty of other examples and references throughout history, so
he calls out. So it's obviously a cult. We have kind of the parallel to The Lottery by Shirley Jackson with the idea of being a ritualistic, because if you remember, that was kind of the idea of we sacrifice this for the good of many, right? Yeah. The idea, you don't want to upset the gods. And in this case, their gods are technology. They've called it out that they worship one side, the Blaine, and that's why the one side army was trying to infiltrate, because they wanted control of the technology. And TikTok Man, coming full circle to our discussions about technology so far, says that that's what he's after. He wants to control
the computers.
The god powers is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Now, I am so dense. I totally missed this the first time I read this, but now on the second read through, this is my second time through this book. Do you know why the town's called Lud?
It's short, isn't it?
I think it's for the sole purpose of the people from here being called Luddites.
Oh, I thought it was a longer name and it got cut off.
It could be, but the people are called Luddites, which, do you know what that word means?
No.
Okay, I've got two meanings for you here. One is derogatory, a person opposed to technology or ways of working.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And three was the historical reference, which is where this came from, which was a member of any band of English workers who destroyed machinery.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he specifically, this whole part was leading up to that technology commentary that we've been picking up on through this book, right?
Yeah.
And these are the people that have either destroyed or worshipped, technology, turned away from technology. And here you have the technology killing them, exactly like we talked about in the previous section.
That makes sense. I like that. Gives a lot more meaning to the name of the town, too.
Well, and it gives a lot more meaning to technology always leading to death, always to resetting man, which is what his theme has been as he's...
And the breaking down of technology, and I guess the reclaiming of humanity, so to speak. Or at least that's what Blaine thinks he's doing. When he kills everybody.
All right, and the last talking note I have is the role of Stephen King in this section is going to be played by Susanna's father.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Let me just read this quote. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Susanna found herself remembering the time she had asked her father, a quiet but deeply cynical man, if he believed there was a God in heaven who guided the course of human events. Well, he had said, I think it's sort of half and half, Odetta. I'm sure there's a God, but I don't think he has much, if anything, to do with us these days. I believe that after we killed his son, he finally got it through his head that there wasn't nothing to be done with the sons of Adam or the daughters of Eve, and he washed his hands of us. Wise fella. So, going back to the whole Gunslinger book and then kind of our talks about how he always has unhealthy churches, he still acknowledges that a God exists. This is coming from a Judeo-Christian background author, a Western author, if you will. And that's very clearly said in this, where he acknowledges the existence of a God. But again, he's painting religion in this derogatory and negative way, where is what is happening with technology and death because of this fall right here. I don't know, but that's kind of what he's insinuating as to why the world is turning to crap, basically.
I think King has issues with his own belief in religion, and I think it comes out in his writing where he sometimes seems so anti-religion you can almost think that he's agnostic or atheist or something, and then other times like, oh, so he does believe in a God, he just thinks very poorly of him or thinks that he's abandoned us.
All right, well, let's wrap this up with ratings. Crypto, what's your rating of the Wastelands as a whole?
I think critically, I like Lord of the Rings better, which this is based off of, from a literary standpoint. So I would give this maybe like a 7. But for a blockbuster, action-packed adventure, I would say like an 8.5. So
yeah, no, I think that's fair because people read for different reasons, and this is very clearly heavy on the action side.
Yeah, and I think that I guess my thing that is we're reading this with a book chat, and we had people fall out of the book chat because they were not inspired to read this book because of the first two, and that's very unfortunate because this is the one where it kind of ramps up, and this is the one where this is the third act of the movie, third book, and this is when it gets good.
All right, I read for the literary side of things these days. I'm going to go with, I think, a 7 as well, which I think is our lowest rating for me. I think I gave Gunslinger a 10. Did I give Drawing of 3 a 9? I'll have to go back and look, and I think I'm going with a 7 for this one. So we'll see. Does Wizard and Glass does it regain its, his crown here with the next book? We're going straight into it next week. Well, we're going to continue reading here. We'll see if we can bring that literary value back up. I really don't remember what happens with the next one.
Yeah, so the only thing I would say is, as the literary goes down, the, action kind of comes up, and vice versa. I think, you look at the Gunslinger, very little action, and the literary goes up. So I think that they're counterbalancing each other, right? It's hard to have both of those things.
I don't think it is hard to have both of those things. I think he chose not to have both of the things here.
Well, you can have both. I just think it's difficult to write both of those things well into one book and one story.
Well, when you take 6 years off, hopefully he brings
No,
that
the
back.
next one takes Wizards and Glass takes 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, guys. Thanks for checking out this video. We do tons of Stephen King along with other literary breakdowns. Please consider subscribing for more videos. We publish videos 2 to 3 times a week.
Peace.